Today I'm going over chapter 2, the section called The Altar of God. It says the atonement can be accepted within you only by the releasing of the inner light. Since the separation, defenses have been used almost entirely to defend against the atonement and thus maintain the separation. Okay, so we've done everything we can to stop the atonement, which is just the undoing of the ego thought system. We've done everything we can to stop that, everything we can to stay within the mindset of the ego and separation. And the very first line that says the atonement can be accepted within you only by the releasing of the inner light reminds me of an exercise that Spirit recently gave to me. Spirit had told me that I am still very resistant to God's love and to the light, the truth. Of course I am. I appear to be here, right? We're all very resistant to this. This is why we all appear to be here. What Spirit showed me was that I had been thinking of God's love as being outside of me, even though I have read the words many times telling me that God is within me. For whatever reason, whenever I was visualizing God's love, I was still always seeing it as a light shining down onto me. So what Spirit showed me was a visual of seeing this sphere inside my chest, which is mostly dark because I am very resistant to God's love. We all are. There's only one of us. We are all in our ego mindset very resistant to God's love. And but it showed me that this sphere had cracks. And through the cracks is a tremendous light shining through. And that is God's love within me. And as I continue to accept God's love, as I continue to accept the atonement, the undoing of the ego thought system, those cracks will get wider and wider and wider as more and more and more of God's love comes through me, because it's within all of us. So that is exactly what this very first line of this section is telling us. Exactly the message that Spirit gave to me recently. Okay, so we're always defending against the atonement, and this is generally seen as a need to protect the body. Why are we trying to protect the body? Because we think we are a body. We think we are egos. And our egos have many fantasies about this world that we've made up. And one of the distorted beliefs, it says, is that the body can be used as a means for attaining atonement. Which is ridiculous. The body could never be used as a means for attaining atonement. Atonement can only happen when we release our identification with the body. It says perceiving the body as a temple is only the first step in correcting this distortion because it alters only part of it. It does recognize that atonement in physical terms is impossible. Okay? We cannot reach atonement within the world of physicality in any way. The next step, however, is to realize that a temple is not a structure at all. Its true holiness lies at the inner altar around which the structure is built. The emphasis on beautiful structures is a sign of the fear of atonement and an unwillingness to reach the altar itself. The real beauty of the temple cannot be seen with the physical eye. All right, so what does this mean? This means that we cannot reach atonement through the body. We cannot reach atonement in the physical world. When it says perceiving the body as a temple, it's telling us the temple is not a structure. It's not our physical body. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about the inner altar that's inside of us, the true light, God, the truth that's inside of us. That's what it's talking about. That is the true temple within us. Much like the exercise that I told you Spirit gave me recently of imagining this light of God within me. That is my temple. It's the light of God within us. And that is where we can find atonement, which is the undoing of the ego thought system. It tells us that spiritual sight, on the other hand, cannot see the structure at all, meaning the body. Spiritual sight doesn't see bodies, because it is perfect vision, meaning spiritual sight has perfect vision. So spiritual sight means you're going to see only the truth, which is spirit. That's all that really exists. Paragraph 2 So it tells us that for perfect effectiveness, the atonement belongs at the center of the inner altar, where it undoes the separation and restores the wholeness of the mind. So that's where the correction is done. It's within that inner altar within us, that place inside of us that is God's love, that is the truth of who we really are. When we start identifying with that, using our spiritual sight, this is where the separation becomes undone. This is when we no longer believe in separation. Before the separation, the mind was invulnerable to fear because fear did not exist. In truth, fear still does not exist because our real truth is that we are spirit, one with God, extending love forever in heaven, and nothing else exists. Both the separation and the fear are miscreations that must be undone for the restoration of the temple and for the opening of the altar to receive the atonement. Meaning, we need to stop identifying with our bodies, stop identifying with the ego thought system, begin to identify with spirit that's within us, the truth that's within us, and then the mistaken belief in separation becomes undone. It says, this heals the separation by placing within you the one effective defense against all separation thoughts and making you perfectly invulnerable. Because in truth, in reality, we are perfectly invulnerable. We are not vulnerable at all. There is nothing to be afraid of. There is nothing that can hurt us. All that exists is love, and nothing else is real. The third paragraph tells us that the acceptance of the atonement by everyone is only a matter of time. This may appear to contradict free will because of the inevitability of the final decision, but this is not so, it says. All right, so it's saying that, we have this desire to have free will. God did give us free will. Unfortunately, we use that free will to miscreate a world of separation. When it says that the acceptance of the atonement by everyone is only a matter of time, the reason that's true is because it's already finished. The tiny mad idea happened in a fraction of a second. It's already over. It's already done. We're already back at home in heaven with God, extending love eternally. So because that's who and what we really are, and we're already there, the atonement has already been accepted by all of us. It's already done. That's why it's only a matter of time before we all accept the atonement, because we are just procrastinating. We're putting off the inevitable. It's already finished. We're just choosing to stay in this mistaken dream of separation longer than we need to because of our fear. So it's saying that this may appear to contradict free will because of the inevitability, right? We're all waking up. There's no choice. You don't get to not wake up in the end. We're all waking up in the end. Your only choice is how long you take to do it. So it says you can temporize and you are capable of enormous procrastination. That's what it says right here. We are capable of enormous procrastination. Yes, that's what we're doing. And it says, but you cannot depart entirely from your Creator. So no matter how hard we try, we can't lose God. We can't lose heaven, no matter how hard we try. It says the Creator who sets limits on your ability to miscreate. All right? Okay, so this reminds me a lot what it's saying of parent-child dynamics in this world. Okay, so God is our parent. God is our Creator. God created us just like God to extend love eternally forever in heaven. But God also gave us free will out of love. We mistakenly used that free will and had a crazy tiny mad idea that lasted for a split second. We already went back home to God. We already remembered to laugh and knew it was silly and knew it was made up and went home to God. But we don't know that we did that. We are trapped inside this dream where we're playing out what happened in that split second linearly over many, many eons. And it's all a mistaken dream. We're not really here. It says that the Creator set limits on our ability to miscreate. So the way this reminds me of a parent-child dynamic with humans in our illusory world is that I remember when my kids were really little, and I read this parenting book that was talking about toddlers are in a stage of wanting to be independent from their parent, much like, it's just copying the cycle. It's just copying the example of what we've done with God. We wanted to be independent from God. That's why we had our tiny mad idea. So in this dream, we recreate that symbolism over and over and over again. We miscreate that symbolism over and over and over again. And so this parenting book was basically saying that since you have this toddler that wants to be independent and make decisions on its own, but you as the parent don't want to give it free will to just miscreate, everywhere. What it was suggesting as the parent is to give your toddler options so that they feel like they have free will and they can make choices, but you, the parent, are giving them the choices. So every choice that you, the parent, is giving them is a choice that would be okay with you as the parent. That is basically what it's saying that God has done with us, that we had free will. We have this free will to miscreate within our dream, but God only lets us go so far with our miscreations. God has made sure that we are all going to wake up and know that we're really home with God. God will only let us miscreate so far and for so long. So within the dream reality that we have miscreated, we can procrastinate as much as we want, but we are all going to wake up eventually. All right, it says an imprisoned will engenders a situation which, in the extreme, becomes altogether intolerable. Tolerance for pain may be high, but it is not without limit. Okay, so we all feel pain when we're in this dream of separation. We all feel pain in this illusory world. And it's telling us that after a while, this pain becomes intolerable. We can endure pain, right? This is what we've trained ourselves to do within this illusory world, but not without limit, it's telling us. There is a limit to the amount of pain that we as a spirit will endure. And eventually, it says, everyone begins to recognize, however dimly, that there must be a better way. All right, that's why we're all here. That's why we're all studying the course and interested in these messages, because we know there must be a better way. As this recognition becomes more firmly established, it becomes a turning point. Okay? So when we decide, no, I am not accepting this illusory world anymore. I know that there's something better out there, that there's true love and peace that exists, and I want to find it. And our inner being is always whispering the truth to us. So somewhere in our mind, we know who and what we really are, and we hear God calling to us. And that is why we are drawn back home to our real state, which is spirit, being one with God in heaven. So then we reach this turning point where we know there must be a better way. And it says this ultimately reawakens spiritual vision, simultaneously weakening the investment in physical sight, which means letting go of the ego, letting go of the way that the ego sees the world and interprets the world, letting go of that physical sight. It says the alternating investment in the two levels of perception is usually experienced as conflict, which can become very acute, but the outcome is as certain as God. So the conflict it's talking about comes from trying to live in both worlds. That once we have this turning point and we know there must be a better way and we are seeking for truth, yet our mind keeps going back to that asleep mode of the ego thought system, that's what causes conflict within us. Because we're trying to live in two worlds at once, and inside we know that that's not our truth. It says, but the outcome is as certain as God, meaning that even though we are experiencing this conflict as we appear to live within this illusory world, because that's where we have invested our beliefs, letting go of that and going home to God is assured, okay? Because we already woke up, we're already home with God in heaven, extending love forever, eternally. We just don't know it. We're still sleeping. So the end is assured. We are all going home to God eventually, when we choose our right mind. Paragraph 4 says spiritual vision literally cannot see error and merely looks for atonement. So this is another way of saying that if we want to reinforce our right mind and release our wrong mind, we stop investing in the things that our physical eyes thinks that it sees in this world. We stop investing in that and we continuously invest in our spiritual sight, where we know that everyone is just pure spirit, just pure love, just innocence. Okay? When we know that and we can see the world with our spiritual sight and our spiritual eyes, that's when we continuously return home to God and we start to reinforce the truth of who and what we really are. All solutions the physical eye seeks dissolve. Okay, meaning everything in this world is temporary. This illusory world is temporary and everything dissolves here. But that's our hint to know that it's not real. Spiritual vision looks within and recognizes immediately that the altar has been defiled and needs to be repaired and protected. Okay, so our right mind, our inner knowingness of the truth, knows that something is wrong and we want to heal and we want to align with God and we want to align with Holy Spirit. We want to go home to God. Because of the strength of its vision, it brings the mind to its service. Meaning, when we are in our right mind and we take the time to see everyone as spirit, the truth of who and what they really are, this is what brings the mind into its true service. Okay? The true service, the service of God. This reestablishes the power of the mind and makes it increasingly unable to tolerate delay, realizing that it only adds unnecessary pain. Okay, so the more we practice forgiveness, the more that we see the world with spirit's sight, with our spiritual sight, the more that the pain of the world, the more that the illusion of separation will become intolerable to us. I believe this is a little bit of what makes me kind of cranky. I'm feeling intolerable of the illusory world. Okay, so that's a good sign. It means that my ego self is becoming less and less invested in this world, that I don't want to do it. Okay, this is where the conflict is coming from. So that's a good thing. That shows me I'm on the right path. The fact that I'm becoming more and more intolerant of the world of pain, of the illusory world. It says, as a result, the mind becomes increasingly sensitive to what it would once have regarded as very minor intrusions of discomfort. Okay, and I can absolutely say that that's true for me. Things that I used to be able to handle, discomfort, pain, things that's like, oh, I can take it, oh, I can handle it. I used to be able to handle that discomfort, and now I can't. I'm more sensitive. I'm much less tolerant of ego manipulation, ego projection, ego pain. Not to say that I don't do it and I don't participate in it. It's just that when I find myself doing that, when my ego is doing that, I feel pain. It doesn't feel good for me to do it. And that's how I become more and more intolerant of following my ego thought system because of that discomfort, because of that pain, because of the sensitivity. So because I've become more sensitive as time has gone on and I've practiced this course, my go-to, my default system is becoming less and less tolerant of the illusory world. The last paragraph says the children of God are entitled to the perfect comfort that comes from perfect trust. So when we trust perfectly in God, when we trust perfectly in Holy Spirit, they're the same. Jesus, it's the same. It's the right part of our mind. Remember, there's only one of us. So those are all just different characters reflecting back to us the perfect love of God. So we're all entitled to that because that's our truth. That's our inheritance. That's where we already are anyway. And it says, until they achieve this, they waste themselves and their true creative powers on useless attempts to make themselves more comfortable by inappropriate means. Translation, quit making the illusion real, dumbass. You don't like it there. It doesn't feel good. And you're only delaying your inheritance. You're only delaying your peace and your happiness. It says we are wasting ourselves here. We are wasting our true creative powers, trying to make this world real, trying to create within the illusory world. We are wasting our creative powers when we are doing that. It says, but the real means are already provided and do not involve any effort at all on their part, meaning it's already done. We've already woken up. The dream is already over. It's already done. All we have to do is just ride the current of spirit. Just go wherever spirit tells us and then we are led through synchronicity everywhere we need to go, everything we need to do, everything we need to say that we appear to be doing within this world, because we're not really doing it. And as we go through those motions following spirit, it will naturally lead us home to God. We don't have to do anything except be open to receiving the truth, open to receiving God's love, open to receiving the interpretation of the Holy Spirit, which is just us. It's just the right side of our mind. It's the same as Jesus. It's Christ consciousness. It says the atonement is the only gift that is worthy of being offered at the altar of God because of the value of the altar itself. Meaning nothing else exists except truth. Truth is love extending eternally. That is the truth of who we are. That's the altar inside of us, that light, that love of God. It was created perfect and is entirely worthy of receiving perfection, because we were created perfect and we are entirely worthy of receiving perfection. We are innocent. We are the innocent child of God who is perfection. It says God and his creations are completely dependent on each other. He depends on them because he created them perfect. He gave them his peace so they could not be shaken and could not be deceived. Whenever you are afraid, you are deceived, and your mind cannot serve the Holy Spirit. Right? So when we're in fear, we cannot serve the Holy Spirit. We cannot know truth because we are believing lies. We are believing the ego thought system when we feel fear. That's not the truth. That's not real. We have been deceived, it says. We're being deceived when we do that. It says this starves you by denying you your daily bread. Okay? Our daily bread is the love of God, our love for one another. The love is the daily bread. It says God is lonely without his sons, and they are lonely without him. Okay, this is metaphor. This is not true. We never really left. God does not even recognize this illusion. God does not recognize egos because they are not real. They are not true. So this is metaphor here when it says that God is lonely without his sons, and they, meaning us, are lonely without him. They must learn to look upon the world as a means of healing the separation. The atonement is the guarantee that they will ultimately succeed. So what it's saying is that this world, this illusory world, it's just a pretend classroom. That's all it is. There's nothing here. It's just a place for us to learn how to go home to God within ourselves, inside of ourselves. That is the altar. So when we stop focusing on outside illusory things within our dream world, and we stop feeling fear, and we stop believing in separation, and we continuously reinforce forgiveness, which is seeing everything with spiritual sight, looking beyond bodies to know the true spirit that's within everyone. As we continue to practice that again and again and again, we are reinforcing Holy Spirit's thought system, and that opens us up to receiving the atonement. That's all we need to do. We just need to forgive. We just need to use our spiritual sight. And then Holy Spirit, which is us, comes in and helps to lead us home. So I hope you remember to continue to practice forgiveness. There's nothing better to do in the world each day except practice forgiveness. As we ask ourselves as things are happening within our illusory world, what is this for? Why is this happening? What is it for? There's only ever one answer. What is it for? Forgiveness.